All right. Top 5 weed stories. Okay. I've been thinking about this for a little while, and I just always, try to classify it. So I finally wrote it down. And this is what I have so far, from what I can remember. Smoke a lot of trees, so memory's not always there sometimes. But anyway, as you know, once again, this your man right here, Kurt ICE, and this is my top 5 interesting hip-hop celebrity weed stories. Alright, let's put it like that. It's a little more specific, because it might just be other shit. If you see Shades of Hip Hop, you'll see, well, why didn't you mention this or mention that or whatever? Some of the stuff that you might see on the tape, because those are not the top 5 that I personally enjoy or am influenced by. Alright, so these are those ones right here, the top 5. Starting off with this, number 5. Now, I've smoked all kinds of blunts. Alright, from Garcia Vegas to Dutch Masters to nasty ass Phillies and White Owls to, back in the day, in the 90s, for a good portion of the 90s, me and my people used to smoke backwoods. Alright. Of course, there was the times when we'd be smoking Dutches a lot or Garcia Vegas and shit or something like that, but and obviously this is the time after, rolling papers, because, nobody smokes joints anymore. And in the 90s, we wasn't, by the time the 90s really got set in, we wasn't smoking joints no more. Maybe at the beginning of the 90s, late 80s, beginning of the 90s, we were still smoking joints a lot. You know what I mean? But then we started smoking the Phillies, and then they burned so quick, and then the White Owls, which is, like rough ass paper. And but then when you get rough, you get into like your backwoods and stuff. So we smoked backwoods all throughout the 90s, but then by the time the 2000s hit, we was smoking more Dutches, and it was really all Dutches, although we was still back and forth sometimes with the backwoods. So it was pretty much beginning of the 2000s. It was backwoods and Dutches for us, and until, which brings up number 5, until one day, this is back when I had the store in downtown Nore on Halsey Street. We was doing the radio station out of there. We was doing, the graphics shop out of there. We were doing a lot of different things, and it was Bank. Bank wanted us to bring some cigars over to the NJ Pack, because Queen Latifah was shooting like some sort of movie or something like that for BET. I don't even know if it ever came out. It was with Terrence Howard and a bunch of people. And one of the people that was there on the set that was part of the filming of that particular thing with Queen Latifah, which is right around the corner from where I was at on Halsey Street over at the NJ Pack, they was filming this, it was fucking Lord Jamar and shit. So Bank called me up and was like, yo, we don't got no blunts. We're on the set, we're taking a break. Could you bring some blunts around the corner and shit? And then we could do a little interview section while you're here. Like, yeah, so what kind of blunts do we want? What do you want? Dutch Masters, vanilla, what do you want? And he's like, no. Look for something called Bluntville cigars. It's these little pre-rolled, things that come in a tube. And it's just like there's single packs of them. I was like, Bluntville's? Okay, well, go to the store. And I had seen them on the shelf before, but I never bought one at that time. So I bought the Bluntville's and took them over to the NJ Pack. Bank was there, Lord Jamar will be back in some room or trailer, I believe. It might have been in a trailer. They had like the trailers outside for the different actors and shit. So we go into the trailer, they got the trees, we start doing an interview, they rolling with the blunts, and the long form version of the whole thing. I have it on here somewhere. I'll find the audio because I recorded it on audio. I didn't actually record it on video, but I recorded it, the interview and the interaction, and we talked about the blunt bills and everything. And from that,
well, of course, okay. We talking blunts here. We talking blunts. So I started with White Owls back in the days. Then we took it to the Phillies, and then we tried the Backwoods for a minute, but I don't really like those. And we smoked Fronto and all that on some yard shit. But then the Dutchess came, and yeah, I like the Dutchess the best. But actually, lately, I've been fucking with these Bluntville wraps. Big up to the vanilla Bluntville wraps. They smoke like a Dutch, except there ain't no guts in there. And it's very good for rolling in the car and shit like that. You know what I mean?
And from that day on, all right, I tried the Bluntville's, and I actually liked them. I was always hating. I was like, what is this pre-rolled? Why would you do that? I was like, I didn't understand the concept of it, like of why you would have a pre-rolled, like you just put the weed in there and roll it and then smoke it. Like you don't have to cut it open like a Dutch and skill it all together like a Backwoods or whatever. Not necessarily the same thing, but similar to a Backwoods, you just unroll the blunt and then roll it back up. And that's except there's no guts or nothing in there. You know what I mean? And yeah, from then on, I've been smoking fucking Bluntville's ever since the fucking 2006 when I met Lord Jamar and shit. And so that's my number 5 weed story. All right. But on to number 4 in a similar fashion. This is back in the 90s though. Going to the Hit Factory, y'all seen the footage, the Hit Factory rhyme cipher with, Nore, 50, Punchline, Consequence. Y'all seen that, cipher. You've also seen some of the surrounding footage from that. But what actually started that off was the fact that when we got up in the Hit Factory, this was 1998. All right. As a matter of fact, I remember the date because it was April 1st, 1998. So on the way to New York, to the Hit Factory, we had already smoked a blunt. The driver and shit, Shell, he had already drank a couple of beers and shit. We're already, driving open liquor, fucking weed and shit. Driving through the city, go through the tunnel. I'm actually go over the bridge to get to the motherfucking Manhattan to go to the fucking Hit Factory and shit. And back then the studios were more secure because of everything that had happened in the previous years with Pac and shit like that. So it was like a lot of security to get inside of a studio back then. Like you had to have your name at the front, then they had to go verify it, then somebody had to come down and get you and all that kind of type of shit. You have to show your ID and all that kind of shit. So it was like a lot of bullshit when you have a lot of boys and shit like that that's with you, and y'all can't just be going up and in and out of the spot. So by the time we had got there, they had ran through, Nore and whoever else was up there with him, his team and the cats that ended up coming there later, I guess, which was like 50 in them. But the whole, Tone and Pope from Track Masters was up there, and Gowdy and all of them from Track Masters, like the whole Track Masters clique was up there. Nore and his people was up there, like his management and some of his boys and all that, Thug That Entertainment and all them cats was up there. So, and then Consequence and his people, whoever was up there with them, there was a bunch of cats in the studio. So they had ran through all the blunts they had, evidently. Because when I came up there, before we really got started, when we kind of just got introduced, he was like, yo, would any of y'all happen to have a blunt and shit? Like, that was one of the first questions Nore asked, was like, because he would have to send his mans out to try to get, go get some blunts and then not be able to get back in when he came back in and shit. So I was like, well, yeah, I got a fucking Backwoods and shit. He's actually for a blunt. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking he was going to take one out of the pack and then give me the rest back and shit. So we don't, there's a pack of 8 Backwoods. So we don't just smoke one. So that means there's like 7 left and shit. So I gave him the pack to let him pick through which one he wanted. But, this being the number 4 interesting weed story is that, because of that pack of Backwoods, we ended up taping this whole long interview with everybody, Hit Factory, Nore. It ended up turning into a whole rhyme cipher that y'all see with 50 and Punchline and all of them. And I feel like it was because of that pack of Backwoods, because I never like got any of the cigars back. Like the next time I seen the pack of Backwoods, it was like flat, like on the floor and shit, just like stepped on like 10 times and shit, and just walked over and shit, and it was just over there in the corner. I was like, this is the rest of my Backwoods and shit. I guess we'll have to get another pack on the way back and shit. But you know, it was worth it though. The footage that we definitely got from that was definitely worth it though, I must say. All right, and these next 3 stories, 2 of the stories I don't have on tape at all, so you'll just have to believe me, you know, that they actually happened. All right, the other one I do have on tape, and you've actually seen it if you've seen some of the Shades of Hip Hop footage. But the number 3 story is that when we was on the road, right? This is actually probably around 2008, 2009, when we were about to start promoting the gospel of hip hop was about to come out, and we were about to start doing the 20th anniversary for the Stop the Violence movement tour, which was like 1989. So we were doing like the 20th anniversary tour for that. And so I was on the road with KRS-One, and we was living in this house in Alpine, New Jersey, which I never heard of before we moved there. But that's like this place that is supposed to be really expensive or whatever. So we're renting a house out there, and you know, doing different press days, going to different studios during the day, getting shit set up for like show dates and shit that's coming up, you know, getting merch and shit together, you know, making plans for and booking trips of how to get here and there and shit. So we're doing all that kind of shit, you know. And you know, if you ever look at any of KRS's press material, you never see him, you know, in a picture smoking a blunt and shit, you know. And obviously, he has a song with Channel Live, Mad Ism, you know what I'm saying, Spark Mad Ism, you know, which is about smoking trees, so you can assume that he smoked trees and shit. But you never have seen a picture of him smoking anywhere. So up to that point, I had never seen KRS smoking or anything like that, you know what I'm saying? And honestly, for the most part, while I was there, like, I never actually saw him smoke either. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I know he smoked because, you know, the number 3 part of the story is the fact that, you know, the one day in particular, it might have been the first time this happened, we were all there, and because I was like, you know, had my crew of people that was there with me and shit like that, Realist Freakin', Jaja and shit like that. But Jaja don't even smoke. So, and Realist don't even really smoke either. But then Beast and Vex and Mondo and the rest of us that was there, you know what I mean? He just, one night we're there at the table or some shit, and we got finished with a meeting, you know, about some tour shit that was coming up, and KRS reached into this bag and just grabbed a big handful of weed and was like, here, divide that up for the rest of y'all and shit. I mean, it was, you know, KRS is not a small dude, he's a big dude, you know, he's like 6'5", and so he just grabbed a big handful of weed, as much as he could grab out of this bag, and then gave it to me, which was like 2 hands full, you know. So I'm like looking for something to put all of this shit on without it spilling all over the floor and shit. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And I still never seen him smoke after that anyway. So I thought that was very interesting. Because you think about it, I mean, how many people have had, the teacher of hip hop, the blast master, KRS-One, the god of hip hop, give them a handful of weed and shit. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, number two. Now, number two was probably, so again, we're on this tour. This is around 2008, probably. We're doing a show at Madison Square Garden. All of the pioneers are there. KRS, Rakim, I know, was on the bill. There's a bunch of different people that's supporting. Hakeem Green, Channel Live is with us because he's staying with us at the house in Alpine. Him, Chip Fu from the Food Stickers is there. It was a bunch of different people there. But I'm outside. This is when I first got to the Madison Square Garden. We meet up at different times. We're doing different shit. So whenever I got there, my name was going to be at the door, and then I was going to be able to get in, and then I was just going to have to come to the green room and find out where everybody was at. So I never actually been to Madison Square Garden before, and I had never been in the behind the scenes part of Madison Square Garden, obviously, because you don't really get a chance to go back there anyway. So I get to this back entrance wherever I'm supposed to go check in at. And because it's Madison Square Garden is pretty goddamn big. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to, get lost around there. So we're, downtown New York, I'm find my way in. So I'm like trying to find my way towards where the green room's at. But before I can even get my heading of which way to go, you know what I'm saying? I actually started smelling like this real, like faint, but dank smell of weed. Like not like far in after I got into like the back entrance wherever we was at. Like there was like back offices back there and like a whole winding way. You're like walking around like a half a circle, as you're walking. And, you can go up floors and shit like that. So I'm just following the scent of weed because I'm like, it has to be that direction. I was like, let me just, like, wherever this weed is getting stronger, I bet you that's where I'm supposed to be at. So I'm just following the scent of weed past all these offices, all these people just like ignoring this. Like, I know they can smell that because I can smell it, and I'm walking past wherever I, came to get to where I'm at right now. So I'm just walking this, actually not that close. So I'm like, damn, where is this shit coming from? So as I go up these stairs, through this back door, through another set of doors, and then on my left, I open up and there's like a big room in there. There's not that many lights or anything on, but somebody's like, yo, what's good, man? What's happening? What's up? And it's fucking Busy Bee and shit. The motherfucking legendary Busy Bee and shit, standing in the corner, who I met on the road mad times with Chris, and we had been doing shit previously, so he recognized me from, being part of Chris' entourage and shit. And so he's there with a big ass motherfucking blunt, like smoking by himself in the fucking green room and shit. And I guess he was waiting for somebody to get there and shit. So he finally sees me and he's like, yo, what's good, man? And he just automatically offers me the fucking trees and shit. So, obviously you can't turn shit like that down. You know what I'm saying? Even though obviously it was supposed to be working and all like that. And definitely when, I was trying to be on point for like show shit and all like that shit, I wouldn't, be smoking like that. You know what I'm saying? But I couldn't actually just turn the shit down, And by the time me and, Busy Bee had passed it back, 1 or 2 or 3 times and shit, that's when Chip Fu and Hakeem Green came in, which they must have been close by and shit when all of this happened, you know what I'm saying? I just hadn't got to them yet, you know what I'm saying? And, so then the smoking session commenced, and then I got actually onto my line of business for the rest of that day, you know what I'm saying? Which is making sure Chris got on stage and everything got taken care of with the press and all that shit behind the scenes. But lastly, the one that you guys have seen, all right, is when me and Patrick was smoking on the roof of Sony. All right. And not only was that the first time that I ever showed anybody ever smoking weed on a Shades of Hip Hop tape, which was showing myself and Patra. And then, so I didn't feel bad about showing anybody else after that. You know what I'm saying? But at the time, like, I was like, I'm going to be showing all these other people doing this quote unquote illegal shit. You know what I'm saying? When I didn't even show myself doing it, and I'm a participant too. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like, you know, some bullshit a little bit. You know what I mean? Like showing all these other motherfuckers doing shit that you do, but you didn't show yourself doing it. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, but the way that happened was during an interview, like there was like maybe a little break in between part of the interview, right? As we're sitting there talking, and for whatever reason we just hit it off or whatever, and she was tired at that point, or she needed a little boost, or she was getting bored with doing the other interviews with other people or whatever. So during the interview with me, she passed me like a little balled up napkin and shit. So I was like, why the fuck did she just give me a rolled up fucking napkin? Like a napkin she just used and shit. She like kind of tapped me on my hand and then passed it to me behind the chair and shit. I was like, why did she just give me a used napkin? So I held on to it for a second till I could really get a chance to look at it, because I didn't want to make it look obvious or anything, because it seemed like she was passing it to me on a low, and we're in front of fucking cameras right now. You know what I'm saying? So on a low, somehow, like I think it was behind the chair or whatever, I opened it up. I was like, what the hell is this? Is there something in this? Because I felt it and it felt a little stiff. So then I opened it up and it was like a half smoked blunt in there and shit, with like lipstick on one end and shit, like red lipstick on the end of it and shit, you know. And it was a half smoked blunt, and she just gave it to me and shit. And so then I was like, oh. And so then I rolled it back up, and then I looked at her, and she was like, we're gonna take a break after this. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, cool. So as soon as we got finished the interview, we, you know, walked upstairs. You know what I'm saying? You see all of that on the tape. You know what I'm saying? She's, you know, wanting to chill, relax, and shit like that. So she was happy to get away from everything. And we couldn't just light up in the fucking middle of Sony studio right there. You know what I'm saying? The shit is illegal already. So, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we couldn't just do it right there. So we had to go to the roof. You know what I mean? We took the elevator up, and then we went to the other doors and whatever. And then we was on the roof of Sony and shit. And then so I sparked up the little fucking end of the thing, and that's the footage you see. You know what I'm saying? So those are my, you know, top 5 weed stories. You know what I mean? I hope you enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed those kind of stories, you know what I mean? That's just small shit or whatever, but it's just part of the interesting fabric that makes up, you know, the hip hop culture. And my personal interaction with the culture, that makes up my particular little square of the fabric. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to give y'all that little piece. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the video a like. You know what I mean? Share it with your friends if you can. Subscribe to the channel. Check you out to the next time. All right, peace.